I hit the bone, turn it 90 degrees. Then I'll slide it all the way down, again just trying to get as much of that meat as possible. And then I'll come off the end. And again, once that's complete, I'll take my second fillet off. You can now see that once I've cleaned off this entire salmon, I can basically see my fingers right through here, and it's pretty translucent. At that point, we can throw this aside and use it as some sort of fish stock. If I run my fingers back down the fillet, I'll feel a bunch of pin bones in here. You want to take these out with a pair of tweezers. You'll see that they're pretty small, but you definitely don't want to bite down on one of these. And you also have to make sure that when you pull them out in the direction that they're pointing. If you try to rip them back a different way, they'll tear the flesh of your salmon, which we don't want. The only other spot we have bones on this piece of salmon are right down here by the belly. At an angle with my chef's knife now, I'll start right down by the base of the belly, which is this really fatty part, and work my way up right around these bones. When I peel this back, I'll have really, really nice fish here. But this is a separate piece that I have to deal with and work around such that I can get pieces without that bone. Now to pull our fillet off the skin, I'll cut my knife down to get a little handle here as I move my fillet knife back and forth all the way down the fish. This will perfectly separate the flesh from the skin. And we can do a little further trimming for this kind of part right here just to take that color off. Since we don't need full portions here, I just want to take the part that I think tastes the best, which is right near the belly. I'll cut this piece right off and then set this aside. This leaves us with what I think is the best tasting part of salmon. Now I'll cut this into really nice little cubes. You can see here that this would be a really nice sashimi type portion of fish. And just like I was talking about, I always love that fat marbling. I'll go down the line and cut this into nice small cubes that can easily fit on top of my crispy rice balls. I'll take my salmon and place it into a bowl. I'll add about a tablespoon of soy sauce, a teaspoon of mirin, a teaspoon of sesame oil, a few tablespoons of Japanese mayonnaise, a nice handful of crispy fried onions, and about a tablespoon of furikake. Then I'll mix it up. Make sure that it's just the right consistency to be able to sit right on top of our crispy rice without dripping too much. This looks great to me. Now I'll set down my sushi rice, which again, I always prepare ahead of time. You can look up a really basic sushi rice recipe, but the number one thing is always to make sure you rinse it through enough until the water runs clear before you go ahead and cook it. Now as we know, sushi rice is very sticky, which means I can form it into these really nice balls that we'll fry. I'll move my bowl out of the way and set down a ring mold. Then I'll press my rice into the ring mold and pat it down just a little bit until we get these really nice rice cakes. At this point, this is ready to fry. I'll drop the rice medallions evenly into my deep fryer. I want to put them all in before actually dumping it into the oil, because my goal here is to get the most even cook possible on these. My oil's set to 385 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'll fry these off now until golden brown. Here we go. Once they're golden brown, take them out. And that right there is some crispy damn rice. Once we have our crispy rice, which as you can see, you can get as crispy as you want, just take a little bit of your fish and heap it right on top. I like to get this as high as possible. And I also like to do it immediately after this crispy rice comes out of the fryer. Then once I've got a really nice pile on them, I'll take just a few sliced green onions and put those on top. And that right there is my salmon with crispy rice. Let's taste it. Now, this is one of my favorite things for a lot of reasons. I just want to show you this up close one last time here. We have a really nice crispy fried rice cake right below. Inside that is a nice pillow of perfectly made sushi rice. Above that we have our seasoned salmon in these nice cubes of that fresh raw Ora King salmon. And on top we have nice thin green onion. Cheers. Oh my that was good. I watched Finding Nemo the other day and remember the quote, "Fish are friends, not food." But to be honest, I have an extremely hard time believing that right now. Look inside that rice cake. You can see that golden brown exterior and that perfect white interior, which means we did exactly what we needed to do here. We got that insane crunch while also keeping the inside really light and fluffy. And that fish on top, oh my gosh, that's good. Again, I'm not kidding when I tell you that this is seriously one of the best bites out there. For right now, of all the things we made in the Sea to Sushi series, this is by far and away the best. In fact, it doesn't even come close to anything else. This should be in its own league entirely. If you're gonna make any of the recipes in my Sea to Sushi series, this is one of the more difficult ones, but purely because it takes a little bit more time. Now, I'm probably gonna sit and eat all of these by myself right now, and I really wish I could send you some to enjoy with me right this moment. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, and drop a like and a comment to let me know what I should make next time. See you later. Wine. When it comes to food, it seems you also have to know a lot about wine, or at least you should. And I'll be completely honest, I don't really know that much about wine, and I want to. I really want to. But today we're going to be learning about wine in a big way. Because I've set out to get, well, pretty much the largest bottle of wine you can possibly find. Now, when it comes to wines, there's a ranking order for sizes. The lowest one is called a demi, or essentially a half bottle. Then you have your standard, it's about 750 milliliters of wine. You know, the usual old bottle of wine. Then we get up to Magnum and Double Magnum, which those get a little bit bigger, of course. Now, when we get to these ones past that, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce them correctly. Then you've got Jeroboam, Rehoboam, Imperial, Salmanzar, Balthazar, Nebuchadnezzar, and Solomon, or Melchior, what we have today. And again, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, but I did some digging and it was kind of hard to figure it out. Anyway, the point is, I've spent hours and hours searching for the biggest bottle of wine in all of Massachusetts, and I think I found it, so let's go grab it.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm quite tired this morning because usually we don't start this early, but we are headed before the shop opens to grab this big, giant 18-liter bottle of wine. I know it sounds crazy, and it's going to be crazy, and to be honest with you, I don't even know what this thing's gonna look like. But what I will say is that I'm wildly excited. So let's get to that shop, let's grab that wine, and let's go back and make some early morning duck. We have just gotten here to this wine shop. I'm super excited because they were the only place in seemingly all of Massachusetts to actually have this bottle of wine that I'm looking for.
So I had this bottled for me.
From 1870.
Yeah, it's Porto. My wife's family's from Galicia originally, so we always fly into Porto. We spend a lot of time there. I have one of the only white ports from 1935. De Cru, 61, 70, 82, arguably the 3 best vintages ever. Wow. Here's yours. It's the biggest bottle I've ever seen or used in real life or in events.
Oh, it's heavy.
Yeah. It's 18 liters. It's literally the largest bottle I've ever seen in person. Close to 100 pounds.
How much would this bad boy set you back?
Close to $3 grand.
$3
So
yeah.
this or a small car.
Then you could just go back and drink this whole thing.
Two of us, I would say.
Two of us could probably handle it, right?
Fine. Maybe invite Mandy in.
Maybe invite Mandy.
If we're being conservative.
Should we bring it up?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Go.
Alright, let's go. Luckily it is manageable, at least to carry.
It's a good start to Friday morning.
Yeah, that's great, right?
You're good to go.
So nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in early.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, man.
Yeah. You need a hand? No, that's all. Alright, Manny. Ready?
Yeah.
Manny, turn that off. Well, it just so happened that, oh my god, we got the biggest bottle of wine you could possibly get. Scoot aside for a second, buddy. I'm at a loss for words. As you can see, the wine bottle is quite literally wider than my actual head. This can be easily backed by the fact that I can very simply hide behind it. Now, before you jump to any conclusions, no, I'm not going to be drinking this whole bottle today in the video. Although that probably would be fairly entertaining for everyone. But instead, we're going to be doing something very interesting. I'm sure you've all heard of a red wine reduction, right? That compares extremely well with things like red meat or what we're going to do, which is duck. Now, I'm really excited because I haven't cooked duck yet on our channel, nor have I really played around with it on other channels at this point. So it's going to be really fun to try something new. The idea here today is that it's so concentrated and potent, and ultimately be this amazing sauce for our duck. Reducing this is going to take quite some time because that means letting off a lot of the water on here. And yes, that's going to burn off all the alcohol, which is fine. We're doing this in the name of experimentation and cooking, and we'll still get all that amazing wine flavor that we have inside this bottle. So, without further ado, let's figure out how to open this thing up because I'm not really even sure how. And let's get cooking. Now, to open this bottle of wine, of course, we have to do something cool. So we're gonna saber it. I'm not sure who here knows what that is, but basically I'm gonna slide my knife up and just crack the whole top up. So here we go. No, I'm not gonna saber it. We have to be careful with this thing. So whoever watching was just rooting for me to saber it, come on. Think about how much money we just spent on this thing. To start, I'm gonna come gently around the top with my knife, slowly digging into this wax. Because our goal here will be to peel off the top of that wax section, which will in turn expose that massive cork for us to take it off. Once we've got some leverage, I'm gonna come around and just peel off this wax piece all the way around. And then that makes it easy to take off that cap. And here we have our monster cork. At this point, we're gonna wedge in that bottle opener and start to twist. Actually, cut the cap for a second. I believe I can fly. I'm gonna twist in with our opener until those arms are just about horizontal and then push down. This is going to be extraordinarily difficult. After our first attempt, this is what we ended up with. An opener with a bunch of cork attached to it, and that's not good. This bottle of wine is going to be a ton harder to open than I ever could have imagined. Unfortunately, my opener was too small, so this here is the aftermath. But we got the cork out with absolutely no cork left in the bottle, which honestly I'm happy about because we didn't have the proper tools for this. We really didn't plan ahead for this. I mean, who can plan ahead for this? As you can see, our cork has that beautiful deep red color, which is great because this means the wine was resting properly. And by resting it such that the wine can touch the cork and continue saturating it, that ensures the cork remains swelled, which in turn keeps the bottle fresh and sealed. So this is fantastic. As for the actual wine bottle, let's all give ourselves a pat on the back right now because we actually opened this thing up. Here, cut the camera for a sec. Now at this point in time, we actually need to start pouring this into our big giant, beautiful glass pot so that we can reduce it. And just look at that sweet, sweet nectar pouring out like that. Fortunately for me, the more I pour, the lighter this thing gets. So I feel like it's probably closer to the 85-pound range now instead of 100. And as I top off the second pot here, we've actually taken a massive, massive dent out of this bottle. I think we only have to fill about 3 of these pots for all of it. Oh, look at this steady stream at the end here.
Oh, look at this steady stream at the end here.
You gotta love a good steady stream. I'm not sure if you can tell, but that leaves us only with wine about up to here. The rest of the bottle at this point is fully see-through. To be honest, looking at this bottle, I thought there was a lot more wine than this, but again, I have no complaints. This is gonna make a really, really good red wine. At this point, I'm cooking this over the highest heat possible, and I'm gonna put the other pot behind me as well as the rest of the wine in here, and we're gonna reduce it all down into a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. So while we wait for all these to finish, which will probably take about 5 to 6 hours, we're gonna finish the rest of our dish. Now, first things first, we're gonna make what's called a pomme puree, which is pretty much just a fancy way of saying mashed potatoes. But instead, they're usually just really, really smooth, and have been put through something like a chinois to make them perfectly silky. To start, I'm gonna peel my roasted potatoes, because normally when I make regular mashed potatoes, I leave on that skin. But for a fancy high-end pomme puree like this, we don't want any of those darker spots or any impurities at all. Most people don't know that you can go both ways like this with a peeler. And to be honest, it makes your work a heck of a lot faster. So next time you're peeling, try it out. When you're peeling potatoes, you want to go as quickly as possible because they are going to start to oxidize. But a way to get around that is to put them in a bowl of cool water, which basically doesn't let them oxidize, at least not as quickly. Also, we're going to rinse off a little bit of that starch first. At this point, we're going to slice some cubes of our potato, making fairly small cubes so that they cook quickly. This is always a good trick that I use, because that way you're not waiting hours for your potato to cook. And once all our potatoes cubed, we're going to put this right into some boiling water, where these are essentially going to cook until they're nice and fluffy. But an absolute must here is to make sure you don't overcook these, because when they take on too much water, you will have a terrible, terrible puree. I can't give you a time here, but cook them until they're fork tender. Right here, I have a whole Muscovy duck. First, I'm going to take out its neck because we're not going to be needing this for this portion, but I'm going to freeze this to save. What are you smiling about? What? Get out. Get out. But I am going to freeze this and save it for a stock down the road. What are you all looking at? You haven't seen a duck's neck before? At this point, I'm going to carve my knife in and gently take off both of those breasts. And as you can see, we get that really clean cut to take this out. We want to get as close to the bones as you can possibly get here, just in order to get a really nice breast. Once the first breast is complete, which really looks quite nice, we'll flip the bird around and take off the other breast. And at this point, we have 2 beautiful duck breasts, both of which are really well cleaned and are ready to cook. For now, I'm going to set these aside and let them come up to room temperature. At this point, our potatoes are fork tender, so I'm going to add them to our bowl here after straining out as much water as I can. And then we're going to lay a kitchen towel over the top to let them steam. This gets them nice and fluffy. At this point in time, we need to score the duck breast, because this will get maximum crispy when we cook it. So, without going all the way through, I'm simply going to come across the whole thing with my knife with the goal of making a checkerboard pattern on top of this duck skin. As you can see, we don't go quite all the way through, but we pretty much go as deep as possible without doing that. And at this point, once we're done scoring both pieces, we're going to hit it with some nice salt, because this salt will draw out some moisture, which in turn will give us an even crispier skin. Keep in mind that with something like duck or chicken, the skin is what protects the rest of that meat from getting overcooked. So it really is important that you leave plenty of skin on. But at this point, we're ready to go. This pan here is not dirty, it's carbon steel, which means we can get it really, really hot. But the first thing we're going to do here is use a few extra bits of that skin to really just lube up the bottom of this pan. Don't look at me like that. Once we grease the bottom of the pan, we can remove that duck fat, and I've actually turned the heat down at this point, because with duck, many people say you want to start with a cold pan. This way you slowly render off that fat, as opposed to hitting it really quickly with a steak that you want to get immediately crispy. Duck fat is thick, and it takes time to render off all that fat. Once we're all set, we're going to lay both pieces of duck face down with our meat. I've started with about a medium hot pan here. At this point, we'll be very patient. I'm going to leave it over low heat and render off as much of that fat as possible to get an extremely, extremely crispy steak. At this point, we've been really patient with our duck, and patience has given us this. At this point, we're going to flip both pieces of duck over, revealing those beautifully crispy skins, at which point we'll toss in a whole knob of butter, spinning this around just a second so it rapidly melts. And at this point, we'll add in a bunch of thyme, some dried orange peel, a bunch of whole peppercorns, and a few bits of lemon zest. We'll quickly butter baste both of our ducks, really getting in all those flavors that we've just added in, and making sure they get it coated with a little bit of that crispy orange peel. And again, all of those other flavors. At this point, we can lay our duck down on the board, because now it's time for that beautiful, beautiful meat to rest for a while. But make sure you don't forget to put all those aromatics directly on top so that they continue to seep onto the meat. See you guys in a little bit. Now, it's time to make our pomme puree. So into my potato ricer, I'll add a bunch of our potatoes, which, by the way, are steaming hot and will burn your hands, so I would suggest using this with your hand.
And then into the bowl we go with our ricer. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you like potatoes and you make a lot of mashed potatoes in particular, get a ricer. It will change your life. And once we've riced all of those potatoes, we'll add in a few knobs of butter, which should melt because of how hot these potatoes are. A little bit of heavy cream to reach the consistency that you'd like, and last but not least, a nice pinch of salt. And now we fold it all together until it's the smoothest potatoes you've ever seen. But we're not done just yet. Stir for just a few moments to make sure all that butter is melted, and make sure you don't forget to give it a little taste to make sure that it's seasoned properly. What did you say? Get out. At this point, we'll put our potatoes into what's called a chinois, which is a fancy word for a very fine strainer. And then we'll stir until we push it all the way through. This part right here is gonna take a while, but as you can see, already that silky smooth potato is coming through. And finally, our plum puree is in a squeeze bottle and ready to go. Okay, I know at this point it seems crazy to see these where they are now. But what you're looking at is this red wine that's been reduced for several hours. As you can see, it coats the edge of the pot much more than before. And at this point, I'm gonna move this into the middle and combine all of our wine together. You see how syrupy this is? That's how thick the entire bottle of wine has become. Now, to finish off this reduction, I do want to add in a few light but relevant flavors. So we're first gonna add just a little bit of this duck stock that I have, a few little hunks of shallot, and last but not least, a good old knob of butter. And at this point, we'll whisk it all up. Now that, right there, is a red wine reduction if I have ever seen it. From a 100-pound bottle of wine, we've ended with one beautiful sauce. No more than half a cup. Let's all appreciate for just a moment that we got from this entire bottle, which, as I hope you can now tell, is completely empty, to this extremely powerful, delicious, grape-filled red wine reduction. Now, first things first, it's time to cut open this gorgeous piece of duck. To do so, I'm just gonna cut from the end first, going all the way down to the middle until I've carved all of this duck, which can be laid out in a beautiful way across our plate. It's definitely gonna get more rare as you reach the middle, but to be completely honest, the end pieces are usually actually my favorite, because they've got that really crispy skin, but are also still so juicy. Whereas if you pick up a middle piece, you're gonna have more of that pinker, more reddish colored duck. A lot of people are gonna tell you to cook duck just ever so slightly so it's extremely pink and red, but frankly, I don't like it that way. To build our plate, we're gonna start by layering out some of that duck, but we wanna leave space for some other stuff, because I'd argue that the red wine reduction is our star of this dish. Next, I'm gonna hit the plate with some of that red wine reduction, going right up next to the duck. Then of course, we'll come in with a few nice dots of our potato puree, which we've worked ever so hard to achieve, and each one of those dots is gonna have so much creamy flavor. But I'll also tuck a few dots underneath our duck to give a little bit more of that potato, because we don't wanna totally screw people over with this plate. And last but not least, I'm gonna take just a little bit of parsley here, because we wanna liven up the plate a little bit with some green color. Otherwise, it just sort of looks sad. And that right there is a magnificent duck dish. With a red wine reduction, I know will be so complex that I can't even begin to imagine how it's going to taste. Let's eat. I am extraordinarily proud of this dish. I haven't gotten to really play around with food in this way in quite some time, and every dish tells a story. It's fun to make food like this. Now, I first want to say I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to toss a like, because that really helps us more than you could ever know. We film every single day of every single week, even sometimes every day, and that's all that we ever ask for. Now, let's dive into this duck, because I am very excited. Look at my little pinky there. I look like the Queen of England. I'm gonna start by taking one of my pieces of duck and just dip it right through this reduction. Just look at that sauce dripping down onto the plate. Next, I just have to dip it in that potato puree. And let's just put a little bit more for good measure. Now, down the hatch we go. Wow. You can take a piece right now, and I won't fire you. Go ahead. You're fired. I was just kidding. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, this, one of the top things we made yet. Many of you would probably look at that bottle of wine and say, oh my gosh, what a waste. But let me just tell you right now, this is genuinely one of the best duck dishes I have ever had in my entire life. I mean, just think about how much time and energy has gone into this dish. It's genuinely mind-blowing. I've licked the plate clean, and all it stands is this one cute little herb. You don't often see me finish food like that, and this was really good. If you ever want to make something amazing at home, take a cheap bottle of red wine. Because if you calculate it out, this bottle that we bought, though expensive as a whole, was actually quite affordable by the bottle if you really calculate things out. Reduce that entire bottle of red wine, washing it carefully towards the end so you don't burn it, then mix in a little butter, shallot or onion, a little bit of chicken or duck stock, whatever you'd like, and pair it with whatever meat you want. It is seriously good. Thank you all for watching. Smack that subscribe button and the notifications icon if you want to. I mean, I wouldn't want you to miss anything like this. We got a few things up our sleeves for down the road. But again, thank you so much for watching, and see you soon.
Everywhere you look online right now, we're seeing variations of the same video.
Ordering every single fast food burger.
Every single fast food burger. Every single burger. Every major fast food burger.